Oh, do you?
We're going to let you be stereo so you can have.
Because you have so much important to say.
Can I do my homework during this?
I didn't bring my computer. Can you put your computer right here and share? Didn't bring my computer. I didn't think I'd need it. Okay. All right, good. Because
None of it. Okay. Move this so that the camera's not picking this up.
This will be interesting. Maybe you can just put it right there.
Could you just, Tara, maybe you can hold it?
Yeah.
You just let it drop.
Here you go.
there we go.
There we go. That's all
Do we
right.
have a
Now we got
microphone
it.
that will go out to people?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I see it.
It's all going to be up on there.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, just we're good. Yeah, just leave it.
They're not going to be able to see that anyway.
All right, Town Council Town Hall meeting, May 12th, 2026, 6 p.m., Cape Charles Civic Center. If I could get a roll call, please.
Newman present.
Holloway present.
Buda present. Grossman present.
Let it be known that we have established a quorum. Tonight's discussion is going to be Coastal Vista Properties presentation and discussion regarding proposed workforce housing development. And before, what's that? There isn't a pledge. No pledge, no anyway, so this evening, for this, before we get the presentation started, I just want to set a few ground rules before we get going. First of all, any letters that are going to be read into the record, or anybody that does want to ask any questions or make any comments, please state where you are from, and you will need to be in the corporate town limits of Cape Charles, have a business in the corporate limit town of Cape Charles, or work in the corporate limit town of Cape Charles. Other than that, we will not be hearing any of your questions or reading any of those letters. Also, I want to remind everyone to expect this meeting to always remain civil and respectful. We understand this is an emotional and important issue for many people, and we welcome passionate opinions and constructive discussion. However, outbursts, interruptions, or disruptive behavior from the audience will not be permitted. Anyone causing a disturbance will receive one warning for the entire crowd. After that, any other disturbance, I will ask our officer to please escort you out of the building. So that's the way the meeting will be run, and I would like to turn it over to our town manager, Rick.
Okay, so thank you all for coming. We really appreciate this. This is an opportunity to hear from our public. So we have gone through presentations, and so what you're going to hear is the background of how we got started. It's been almost a year ago when we first started this. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob Panic, who is our capital projects manager, who's going to walk you through, and then I'm going to share with you what that looks like, next steps, like once we work a developmental agreement, what does that look like, some of the restrictions and parameters that will, and then we're going to turn over to our presentation. So most of your questions hopefully will be answered between those before you even get to the presentation.
This is working? It is, okay. So what the mayor said doesn't apply to me because I'm not the audience, so I can cause a ruckus. So anyway, Rick said, I'm Bob Panic. I'm the town's capital project manager. And what I'd like to do is first give you a little orientation of where this property is, how we got it, what's been done so far by the town to enable workforce housing development at the site, and then walk you through a little bit of the process of how we got here. And please hold questions till the end. What we'd like to do is go through each segment and then field questions at the end. So I'm going to, Tara, sorry. No, we're good. So, all right. So this is the property. So let me orient you. On the south side, this is Old Cape Charles Road. This property is on the far eastern edge of town. Over here is Bender's Lane. There are a row of houses here on Bender's Lane. The town boundary is right at the back property line of that row of houses. Over here is the new Casat Parkway. So it's in that kind of triangle there. You'll see here a parcel, well, you can't actually see it, but there is a parcel there, and that is a well site. That's where 2 new wells are, and those will be hooked up to the water treatment plant soon by Virginia American Water. How did we get this parcel? Town owns it. Many, many years ago, this was part of a larger parcel. This is around 16.5 acres. There's about a parcel over here, actually it's been subdivided since, but it was about 14 acres. That was all zoned under very old zoning, residential estate. So it was on the edge of town, and I don't recall the exact density, but it envisioned, I think, 2-acre lots or something like that. The owners didn't want to build that kind of a housing there, so they asked the town to rezone the parcels, upzone it to R3, which is multifamily, and the proffer they offered for that was ownership of this portion of the property. And it was subdivided, and the town has owned it for over 10 years, around 12 years, 13 years, something like that. So that's how we got the property. We didn't pay for the property. Property came free. So that's the property. What has the town done so far to enable workforce housing development on that property? I mentioned the well site. Obviously, any kind of relatively dense development requires central water and sewer. The town put in 2 wells to expand the capacity of the water treatment plant. They also have designed the town has designed the pipelines going to the water treatment plant and a 12-inch water main coming back to the well site in order to provide water for multifamily housing development. That project, with engineering costs and construction costs, is around $600,000. So on the water side, the town has already invested $600,000. It also requires sewer. So there's a force main planned coming down Old Cape Charles Road. The town paying for the design and engineering of that to the tune of $60,000 to $70,000. So the town has stepped up to the plate to enable workforce housing on this site. Now you might say, why? Well, obviously everybody knows that there's a deficit of affordable housing on the Eastern Shore. I believe the ANPDC study put the deficit at over 1,000 units required on the shore. The town's comprehensive plan and the community strategic plan for the last several years has identified a goal to build affordable housing and a variety of housing for our workforce. So that's how we got to where we are. What the town did back in August of 2025 is put out a request for proposals for development of workforce housing. We had 4 proposals that we received. There was a committee that evaluated the 4 proposals and made a recommendation to the town council to select this particular proposal to negotiate a development agreement. So that's where we are tonight. And it's been a long process. And before I turn it over to Rick, back to Rick, to talk about a development agreement, questions about how we got here. Excuse me, my allergies are kicking in. Yes?
Need a microphone.
Just to get my bearings straight, is this the same location as where those 3 townhome structures? Where is that?
That's just to the west.
So that's not on the same parcel
No.
of land. And is that's owned by somebody completely different? That has nothing to do with this?
Nothing to do with it.
But doesn't that project delaying whenever, because of the problem with water lines and sewer stuff? Is that well water over? that's-
Those lots are on well water.
Okay, but not have anything to do with these
No,
wells?
not at all.
Hey, Beth, could you go ahead and give your name and your address, please, and for the record?
Sure. Beverly Steffi, 204 Jefferson. So, so I'm just trying to,
Sure.
yeah.
Other
Are
questions?
those currently occupied?
I don't know.
One is, or, huh?
One out of three.
I see a card. This is code. I keep reading around.
Sam Jones, 538 Monroe. So just to make sure we're all in the same thing in terms of the town's investment, the land came free.
Correct.
The land has some value, right, that you could assign if you were looking at what is the town contributing to the development.
That's correct.
It's not zero. And then you said 600,000 for the wells and another 60 to 70,000 for the sewer design. The actual installation of the sewer is the responsibility of the town or the responsibility of the developer?
That will be the responsibility of the developer.
Okay, all right, so the 670,000 is what we would say is out of pocket from the town, of which all but 70,000 has already been spent? Is that?
No, actually, all but 550, well,
So the
we
wells
paid
haven't
for the
been done
materials.
yet?
About $500,000 has not been spent yet.
Okay,
We're waiting, Virginia American Water let the contract to connect the wells and to run the pipe, the water main back to the property. And we're responsible for picking up the cost of the water main back to the property. Only, that portion of the contract is $550,000, and we've spent so far around $160,000.
That had to do with the sale of the water, that was the agreement.
got it, yeah, understand, just trying to figure out what's still the obligation for the town in terms of additional expenditures.
Yeah, it's budgeted, obviously. Okay.
Okay.
And just so you have a full picture of the cost of utilities to the site, the estimate for the force main is somewhere around $1.5 million. Wastewater force main,
And that's whose obligation?
developer.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you.
Sure. Other questions? Okay, hearing none. Rick, would you like to?
I've got my own microphone. So,
Oh, okay.
Ed Wells, 202 Strawberry. I was wondering if this property's been
Cl- no,
appraised.
closer,
Has this
closer.
property been appraised?
It has not?
That you didn't think that was should be included in the project?
Well, we didn't, there's no cash outlay. So, I mean, there's a county assessment, of course.
Well, I was just curious what this property's worth on the market, the open market.
We did not have it appraised.
Okay.
all right, so you've heard a little background how this has been on a council priority for a while. It's bigger than the Cape Charles priority. It's a county priority as well. And one of the first things that I was tasked to when I got here was put out an RFP and be willing to take all proposals to see what developers would offer us. I've been involved with projects like this for 17 years. So back in my Augusta days, I was the Downtown Development Authority chairman. Did lots of projects on the riverfront in Augusta, and then down in Brush, Colorado, and in Georgetown, working with many housing authorities and housing developments of 400 to 1,000 homes. And one thing is so valuable is when the town owns property in order to use that as a negotiation opportunity to get what we want. So it's different if they just buy the land and they turn around, the goal of the developer is to try to make maximum amount of money out of it, and they turn around and sell the units individually. But in this case, we're saying this is our land, we want it to be used for what we want. And so there's exchanges of those things. So we have the land as an opportunity for us to work with. In this case, like what you heard, we got this land for free, and so we have an opportunity to use this. Once we move forward, I just want to make sure people understand what happens from here. A developmental agreement will have to be negotiated between both parties. And what that means, a developmental agreement spells out the specific details of what we're obligated to, both parties. So for example, in order to make this a workforce housing development, you've got to bring down the cost. Because if not, he or whoever does the development has to find a way in order to spread this out so they can make his money back in the long end and make an investment on top of it. But in this case, we try to spell out all what this means. So for example, I'm going to just share some things that will be included in a developmental agreement that basically will take us time, and there'll be at least 6 opportunities for public hearings, for public feedback and council to go through. So just letting you know, this is not a hasty process. This takes lots of time. Many drafts, engineering, lawyers being involved. But I'll just share some quick things before you get into the presentation. We have to define a clear definition of what workforce housing is, right? And so we all come in and go, well, what does that mean? And so we want to make sure in the definition what we mean. Typically what you hear is 60% to 120% of the AMI, the average median income. So for example, in the county, I believe it's around 58,000. I could defer.
62.
So it just went up 62. Well, I was using 58,000 as the median area income. So if we took 60% of that, that would be $34,800. All the way to the top would be 120% that falls within that window of affordable housing for a workforce. It's typically the top end of affordable housing when they say workforce. So there's different categories. We're not talking about government subsidy housing. We're talking about workforce. It's the top. None of the government restrictions or anything like that. But 120% would be $69,600. That's what your income would have to be for your family. So typically, when you go for affordable housing, it's 30% of your income. So for example, if you make $34,800, the bottom end, 30% of your income would be $870. That's the window we're looking to be for someone to be able to afford a rental or to be able to own that. They'd have to show that their income falls in it. So in the developmental agreement, it's spelled out. On the top end, it would be $69,600. And what 30% would be $1,740. That would be your monthly allowance that you could go towards your mortgage or rent. So it kind of gives you some parameters. That's what we're talking about, fitting within that window. So for a developer, how do you do that? It's really, really hard, to be honest. It's very hard. So they have to spell out an agreement of how many of those units will be affordable housing and what will be just market rate housing, so that we can justify it. So one of the incentives is we give the land, and there's a value of that land that he doesn't have to buy, so it brings it down. So that's why we do this, but we'll spell that in there. So there will be binding affordability requirements, as I just mentioned. All those things will be spelled out. How long will this deed restriction last? 20, 30 years, it'll be spelled out. It'll talk about, resale restrictions, how many years you have to own this before you can sell it. It'll be appreciation caps, right of first refusal of all these things will be spelled out in the definitions section. Developmental schedules will be spelled out in the developmental agreement, such as site plan submission deadlines. There's a deadline, we have to review it. We get planning services to also review it. We go back and forth to make sure that it fits our zoning. So there'll be our zoning reviews. There'll be finance deadlines so that they can approve their financing. Construction commencement dates. There'll be automatic default provisions in case they don't meet a deadline. There'll be liquidation damages and termination rights. All that stuff will be spelled out. So, for example, in the scheduling, when permitting will be allowed within 12 months. That would be an example. Begin construction within 18 months. These are things that we will negotiate, but I'm giving you examples. When would the first units be deliverable, ready for renters or purchasing? within 30 months would be an example. So we would show guidelines of how fast or slow this would go, so expectations would be met. Land control, we would put that provision in there. Making it very clear how people can buy these and how, if they were to sell them, what those provisions would be, how they would be leased, what those leasing obligations would be, deed restrictions, so that short-term rentals would not be allowed. So we've talked about that from the very beginning, and they have agreed that this proposal, what he's showing, would not allow short-term rentals or vacation rentals or any of those kind of things. Buyback rights, rights of entry, performance covenants, and all those kind of things would be spelled out. Performance security, an example would be like a letter of credit. If they don't meet an obligation, which would be defined, then there'd be a bond to secure of what it would cost to finish that. So like a road, they're supposed to put in a road, and they don't put in the road, we would pull the security, the line of credit, so that the town can put the road in. Those are normal in developmental agreements, so that there's assurances that the project will still be built. There's detailed compliance and monitoring requirements as far as they're going to be working with a company who would manage who gets to be, who is certified to be part of this program. We would work with them looking at annual reporting, rent rolls, sales records, all these things would be spelled out so that we know that we can look at it with the town. Penalties for non-compliance, default remedies. There would be, like I said, anti-conversion protections, that you can't just convert this into a luxury apartment or a short-term rental. Local preferences we would spell out, which would be, we would prefer to have teachers and police officers there. I'm sure you would love to be able to live over here. And how about myself? I did a little number. This is just for fun. I can't even live in Cape Charles. When I first got here a year ago, I was looking at just the lower end of homes in Cape Charles, which was about $750,000. So do you know what that means? 30%, what that comes up to? It's like over $4,000, $4,000 to $5,000 a month. That means I would have to make council $215,000 to $240,000 with 10% down, just so I can live here. So maybe that I can propose that on the next budget cycle. But I can't even afford to live here. So we're talking about work. I would be a workforce person to be able to live in the town of Cape Charles, and that's what we're talking about. But protecting those who would fall, I don't fall within this income bracket, 60 to 120% AMI. I don't fall into that. But we want our servers, our officers, people who have retail shops that work there, we want them to be able to live and play and work here just as well. So local preferences would be included, what percentages that we would aim and shoot for. Infrastructure and public improvements. Some people call that an SIA, subdivision improvement agreement. What are the improvements that we would build into this that they would put in and timelines that they would have to, and then when it would be turned over, according to specs and specifications that would be spelled out in the agreement. There's financing and tax credit requirements. There's assignments and transfer restrictions so that it would not turn over to something else if somebody would not be able to afford it anymore. I just want to make sure you all understand default remedies, zoning, entitlement conditions that it have to meet. Like at first we were looking at a PUD to see if this would work, planned unit development. However, I think the last I heard is they may not need to do that. They may be able to use the current zoning in order to work and have all their development within our current R3 zoning. So I think that would save us a tremendous amount of time as we move forward. Public transparency. I think that's another one that you need. It would be built into this whole process, which is why we're doing this today. We want to make sure everything is to your eyes to see what's going on. We spell out these things, but we would continue to have public reporting of where we are, public meetings and requirements. The procurement compliance would all be followed. Conflict of interest compliance, long-term government structuring of how this would look like, particularly important of why this is important for Cape Charles. We would spell out these things. I just want to make sure I shared all those things in a timely manner so that you understand this is not going to happen overnight. This is going to take several years probably for us to build and phase these programs out. But there will be lots of restrictions that are built into it. All right, does anybody have any questions regarding to those things that I just mentioned? Comment? Questions or comments?
So again, Sam Jones, 538 Monroe. So Billie Jean and I are on the Eastern Shore Habitat for Humanity Board, and we use that 30% that you were talking about as sort of a guideline to figure out how much of someone's gross income is actually they can afford. The comment is that when we look at that, we include mortgage, insurance, and taxes. So the things that a individual who's, particularly if they're buying, a unit, they have to pay, type of thing. And so just, particularly in an environment here like we have where you pay taxes to the county and you pay taxes to the town, that works on that mortgage number. So just something to keep in mind there. I only speak as myself now, fully supportive of the limitation on short-term rentals, and would just say, as you get deeper into the details of this, making sure that if leases allow for subleases, that the subleases also carry that same restriction, so that it's just not a way to sort of work around the system, because that's a possibility as well. And then, Rick, one thing you mentioned at the very beginning was and agree completely, this is not a Cape Charles issue. This is a county-wide, basically an Eastern Shore-wide issue. And have we or can we approach the county for some of those expenses that the town is going to have? Because, as you said, those teachers, those police officers, volunteer firemen, those folks, they're not all going to live within the town or work within the town. And so, but they will be able to take advantage of this housing. And so, knowing that the county in their discussions talks about workforce and affordable housing a lot, and they're out there doing all kinds of town-edge things that I don't completely understand. But it wouldn't hurt to ask for them, because the people who live in this project are going to be able to serve the county as well as the town. So just a general comment. Thank you.
Other questions? Before we turn it over to Chris, this is Chris, by the way. Rick made the point about property control and also phased development. And I just want to emphasize that there is no intent to deed the 16.6 acres over to a developer and say, do the best you can. Okay? This is a phased 170 unit development, and the development agreement would transfer portions of the property on a schedule, development schedule. And the additional property would not be transferred until performance occurred. So I just want to make that clear. All right, Chris. You're up. All right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Carball.
Do you have the press?
Good. All right. Again, my name's Chris Carball, one of the partners who, when we had the opportunity to review the RFP back last August, thought this was, a great project, not only for Cape Charles, but for the Eastern Shore of Virginia. My name might ring a bell. We're working on numerous projects throughout the Eastern Shore of Virginia, trying to bring housing to not just Northampton, but to Accomack County. So numerous projects in the works on this project. Partners are myself, it goes hard to, and Jay Berge. For the past 25 years, we've both been involved in land planning and development of residential, commercial, and mixed-use projects throughout the Mid-Atlantic area. again, when we saw the RFP, we agreed. We moved here 2 years ago. Been out to many businesses, restaurants, retail establishments, talked with many teachers, service workers, and heard the message loud and clear that there's not really much affordable housing to be found on the Eastern Shore of Virginia. So when the town identified this parcel, we agreed it was a great opportunity. It had the zoning in place, being R3 for multifamily. And knowing how important the workforce is, we said this is a great project, where we can provide a housing alternative for families. Those in careers that support our community can live and work while enjoying a high quality of life in Cape Charles. When people have access to affordable housing, they can live near their workplaces. They can and do support our local businesses. They develop a vested interest in their town. They become integrated into the social networks that bind our communities and make them great places to live and work. So, that really got us interested in putting together a proposal to Cape Charles. So this is a project that we understand needs to provide rental and home ownership opportunities, and we propose to offer both home ownership and rental based upon market demand. Workforce units shall be restricted for a term of 20 years. Short-term rentals will be prohibited, and we understand that sewer must be extended to the site. And again, that's where we knew we needed to step up and probably find a solution to get sewer to this property. We knew that there wasn't money in the budget to extend the sewer, and that's where we agreed to cover that expense so this project could happen. And really that, equates to that cost of running sewer to this property to be about $75,000 per acre that we're investing to the town. It works slow, doesn't it? A project overview. Based on our understanding of this project, we had to evaluate numerous housing options that would be a good fit, not only for Cape Charles, but also would provide the price ranges that the workforce needed. And we found that the best option to be what we call a 1/1 product. This is basically a townhouse where we have our first floor unit and a second floor unit. So we're basically taking the cost of one townhouse and dividing that into 2 units. This approach allows us to significantly lower the unit cost, making at least 50% of the units fall within workforce housing, whether a rental or purchase unit. Proposal to construct 170 1/1 units where a minimum 50% shall qualify as workforce housing. The remainder will be market rate units. And it's important to understand that's how we get these unit prices down. If we can come in and provide so many market rate units at a higher cost, we can basically subsidize those other units. We can also possibly bring in things such as amenities. If you look at our plan, we have, community pools, clubhouses, playgrounds. So we're trying to make what we would find to be a nice community that, we hope a workforce family would want to live in. The property would utilize a professional management company to qualify residents as well as manage and maintain the property. So as well as this board beside me, but also up on the screen, here is, your, elevation of what the 1/1 unit would look like. You come into the first floor door, and there's actually, a door that takes you to the first floor unit and then to the upper floor unit. Here's just some typical floor plans that shows how that works. Again, your first and second floor units. Here's another example. Obviously, we'd fine tune these, based on this specific project, but, it gives you an overview of how these units work. They can provide, as little as 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, up to 3 bedrooms. Typically would range maybe around 1,000 square feet up to maybe 1,300 square feet per unit. There's your upstairs unit on that slide. And then here's a couple images of, what your interior would look like. That's your typical living room area. Looking over the living room into the kitchen. Another view there of the living room and kitchen. And obviously your bedrooms are your typical bedrooms, so not much to see there. And that gets us to, our proposed site plan. Again, we looked at the ordinance recently and do believe we do have an avenue under the current R3 zoning. When we were first, talking to the town about this, it was anticipated this might require a PUD, but, again, the R3, does allow multifamily. I think under the current zoning, we could probably, by right, get up to about 270 units on this property at 1 per 1,500 square feet per the code. But again, to retain significant open space where, here we're looking at 40% open space, we've limited that to 170 units. Again, community amenities near the entrance, with pool, clubhouse, playground, 2 parking spaces per unit. And again, being that it's a multifamily project and knowing that we live in a resort kind of area near the water, we also have incorporated kind of a boat or RV storage area in the rear of the property. This would be a phased project, as Mr. Pendick mentioned. We've anticipated three phases with the project. So, again, you would typically find a project like this, we're probably looking, after the start of construction, somewhere about 50 units per year. So this is probably somewhere in the, 3 to 4 year range for a build out of a project like this. So that's a general overview of our proposal that we've made to the town of Cape Charles. We're excited to have this opportunity to work with the town and the public. And, I think this is an opportunity to kind of outline our plans and hear any thoughts that town residents as well as our council members might have to see how we can work together to make this a win-win for everyone.
So we'd like to open it up to hear your thoughts, your questions, your feedback. And
Sam Jones, 538 Monroe. Can you talk a little bit more, Chris, about the distinction between what would be your market-based homes and your workforce housing homes? Because there has to be something there that picks up that. Is that square foot driven, or is it amenities driven, that type of thing?
It wouldn't likely be too much about the square foot. The floor plans would probably basically be the same. Your finishes might change to a certain extent. Sorry about that. But again, knowing that, even a market rate unit, I mean, if we look, I think there's some multifamily units in town that, are probably as small, if not smaller than this, that are in the 400 range. Again, we got to work on the split of this to make the numbers work, but, more than, likely it's going to be finishes that make the big difference here. And then just, it's obviously one of the more affordable units you can find around Cape Charles, even if it's in the 400s.
Understood. And I know this is very preliminary, but have you thought, as you do that 50-50-50 build out, what's the balance between the market base? Do you need to do those first to get the finances started and then come back with the workforce, or is there a balance between the two, or is that something you'll negotiate with the town as you go through the process?
Well, we envision that probably that would stay pretty close to equal. I mean, we know from day one, we got to provide the workforce component. So, trying to work those numbers, see what we can do. But my intent would be, or expectation would be, those would be about 50-50.
Great, thank you.
And yes, that would be spelled out in the developmental agreement. The one that gets approved, how about that? It'll go back between negotiation, but what gets approved will be spelled out.
Can you go over the 20-year?
Oh, hold on, wait for the microphone.
Ed Wells, 202 Strawberry. Can you kind of explain what the 20-year plan, what happens at the end of that time period?
Well, I mean, it's a deed restriction, so the restriction could be, it would dissolve. So it could turn all into market rate, or it could be renegotiated at that point. So
Well, who would you negotiate with?
developer, whoever owns it, the individual parcels at that point,
So at that time, it could turn into many different things.
potential.
Why wouldn't it be a 30-year? Like most mortgages are 30 years these days.
It's something for us to consider.
I mean, if you're buying a place, you usually get, well, most people at this price point is going to have a 30-year mortgage. So I just figured that would be, something to put in there.
It would be considered. I mean, if you think about like,
Well, I've seen 20 and 30 year. I mean, what's the distinction to this,
whatever we agree upon.
okay, just curious, just putting it out there.
They had how many people live in their houses, their first house for 30 years? It's a financing issue as to what you're gonna get as a mortgage, and you're gonna take as long as you can in order to get the lowest interest rate you can, and then you'll live in it till you afford another house, and just so, there is no magic in my mind to having it had to be 30 years.
Well, I mean, it just goes along with a 30-year mortgage. I figured the two could work together.
They could. I mean, that's why we're here, is to talk and listen. And I mean, I think some of these plans that we've looked at over the years have started with a 10-year restrictive period, which I thought was kind of short, because I mean, 10 years is a blink these days. I mean, then you're right back to where you started and you have no inventory again. But, it's one more thing that has to be kind of ironed out and figured out. But it wouldn't necessarily, we've talked about some for sale and some for rent units. It has no impact, I don't think, Chris, on you. I mean, if you sell a unit early on at below market value, you could care less, I assume, what it sells for in 10, 20, 30 years, because you're out of the equation on day one in that instance, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, it's just something, yeah, we could look at different alternatives there, because we do want a solution that's as permanent as solutions can be and can last as long as possible.
Well, my thought is after 20 years, it could go to STRs.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it could always be deed restricted.
No?
No, that would be,
well, that's not clear anywhere in this discussion so far, so.
yeah. I think the deed restriction just has to do with the 50-50 and the workforce portion of the project, not whether there would ever be STRs allowed in that. That would be something that the council would have to vote on after that to bring STRs to it, if we were gonna do that.
That could be spelled out also in zoning.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
it doesn't allow, and so those things can be controlled.
Okay.
Beverly Steffi, 204 Jefferson. So this would be a HOA community. And based on your experience with this type of community, what kind of fees do you envision charging people?
Well, obviously that's based on what it takes to maintain the
Well,
property.
that's what I mean, with a property like this.
We got to work on that, and that's where, again, the market rate homes come in and make a big play as far as towards making that possible. You know, without the market rate units, we probably would not be able to come in here and have a clubhouse or a pool. So that's the big component that allows that to happen.
And when you did have, you reached out to the public and talked to teachers, nurses, police people, so what kind of feedback did you get? What was their reception? Were they interested in something like that? Did they think this was something that they might be interested in, or realistically could be interested in?
That's what I hear for the most part when I'm out in the community,
Yeah.
that, you know, this is one of our biggest needs, whether.
Oh, I know it's a
I'm
need.
talking to our businesses in town, you know,
Yeah.
our residences, our friends in Bay Creek.
Yes.
Whether I'm meeting with the school teachers, our medical staff. I mean, I've received for various projects, you know, letters of support, whatever we can do to bring housing, whether it's employers, hospital, medical professions. I mean, everyone I talk to says this is a critical need. You
Oh, I know it's
understand?
a critical need, but as far as realistically, the people who need all this very desperately, on both ends of the spectrum, is it something, so, is it truly going to be affordable to them?
Well, here's what I like to explain to someone. We're trying to do the most affordable new construction we can do.
Oh, right.
I mean, you both probably know with, you know, Habitat with Humanity. I mean, the construction costs are going through the roof.
Exactly.
Development cost is going through the roof. You add your property costs, you add your soft costs.
Sure.
It's almost impossible. We really have to get innovative to create the most affordable product we can.
Exactly.
And that's the best we can do. Everything else, I mean, yes, there's.
But is
other
there a
housing we
market
can
for
do
that?
is-
I mean, is it realistic?
Yes.
That's
I mean,
just
right
my
now-
concern. I mean, when you mention servers and, it's like, okay, I mean, it sounds good on paper.
We sell real
concerned.
estate as well throughout the Eastern Shore. And for instance, right now, you know, just this afternoon, we pulled up how many homes were available on the MLS in Northampton County under 325. And there was a total of 14 homes
Right.
available in Northampton County, where probably only half of those were habitable.
Right.
So, you know, it's critical. We try to do the best we can. You know, again, I can't do anything about construction costs. Like I said, this is a new innovative product where we're taking, you know, what would typically be a $500,000-$600,000 townhome, and we're dividing that into two so that we can get something down in the twos. That's the best we can do right now.
I can speak a little bit about, from the education standpoint, we have a large number of teachers who commute every day from across the bay. And they are riding in vehicles that the county provides to transport them back and forth because they can't find housing on the shore.
Yes.
We hire a lot of very young teachers, most of whom do not come from rural areas. And you know, this is a wonderful place to be, but if you've never lived, if you're coming from Philadelphia and you are dropped off on a neck in the Eastern Shore, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a whole other life.
Right, right.
But being in a place like Cape Charles where there are more, or Exmoor or other places, but there's a little more amenities. There's a chance to meet more people and not feel isolated. We lose a lot of teachers, young teachers, because they feel isolated here. So this would be an opportunity for community. We have teachers who are living in motel rooms, you know, and paying almost this kind of price to be in a motel room.
Yeah, so let me just add on to that, because I was going to say, the Kip-to-Peak Inn, if you know, down the road, has been converting their units in their 350 square foot home, studios,
I think it's,
and they're $1,000.
Right.
And as they convert, they're filled up. And it's by people like the teachers and what have you. So there is a need, and there is a need for converting more of those units.
Absolutely.
But we're trying to compare that to this and saying, hey, now from 350, I can go up to 1,000 square foot.
yeah, no, I'm not arguing that. I'm just,
Yeah.
as far as the realistic market for of people. And just because things I've heard from just people coming to the shop, whatever, when I mentioned the Kip-to-Peak Motel and how, you know, hey, it's a great effort, and yeah, they're tiny, but hey, it's, you know,
It's something that desperate, yeah.
yeah. And they say, well, who can afford $1,000 a month? And I said, well, to me, that sounds very affordable.
Microphone.
To me, that sounds, I mean, but it's like, I'm just, yeah.
No, people are online trying to watch, so you need to
Yeah,
use the
no, I mean,
microphone.
no, I understand. Yeah, no, I understand, I'm sorry. I'm just throwing that out there as far as what the reception to even a place like that for something that seems very affordable. I'm just wondering what the response has been with these people that you are talking to that would be the candidates for either renting or purchasing a home in a neighborhood, in a development like this.
Some of it in a nutshell is, from what's been going on across the entire shore, everybody wants it, but no one wants it in their backyard. That's a lot of the
That's probably
problem.
true, yeah, yeah.
So one of the reasons we decided to use the land as a carrot or as part of the negotiations, this whole thing is to keep the cost down. So that value of the land is not cooked into the building. So that makes a huge difference. So where we can have a 1,000 square foot unit versus a 350 square foot unit. It's a little bit more desirable.
Yeah, well, on the market, the Coast Guard station. In the old days, every coastie lived in town because it was affordable. You know how many live in town now? One.
That was subsidized housing from the government.
It was, and they still but they still subsidize housing, Ed, okay? It's not on their dime, okay? They subsidize housing. So every one of them lives across the bay except one. So there's a market for that.
Our town staff also,
Yeah.
I think our town staff, if they had an option, in fact, I think some are actually sitting back there who have shown interest, because we have two here that would show interest, that we have close to 50 staff.
Is it my turn? Patsy Harris, 630 Carousel Place in Bayside Village. I think what I was hearing Beverly ask, have you done any market research among the people you are hoping will live here? I know the employers think it's a great idea. I know the county officials think it's a great idea. I know you all think it's a great idea. But have you talked to the teachers and the nurses, and have you shown them these plans and said, hey, if you could live in here for 30% of your take-home pay, would you? And has that been done? I haven't heard that has been done.
We've talked with many teachers,
Microphone.
doctors. I've been going that up and down the shore.
Is there any documentation? Like, have you done any sort of a survey? Is there any sort of mathematical?
But again, we also have the Accomack Northampton Planning District study that is a very comprehensive study that shows at every,
Right, but I know there's a lack, and everybody thought the Kiptopeke Inn was going to be the answer, and most people didn't want to live there because it's in the middle of, it's on 13, it's not close to anything.
It's tiny.
It's tiny. So I'm wondering, if you had a young family and you showed them these things, would they say, no, I would want a yard, I wouldn't want to live that close to people. I just don't know. I feel like it's something worth investigating, though, before you go ahead.
I can speak to that, just being in the business and talking to people all the time that are looking for homes on the Eastern Shore. And I've got many clients right now that are all over the place, and they're in this range. This fits them perfectly. And they've looked at those 14 homes that they were just talking about that are listed. Not one of them they're putting under contract. They're just not going to do it.
Well, I think
So-
it's great, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Curious.
So I mean, I know personally that I'd have 12 clients right now that if these were built, they'd be in those homes. No doubt about it.
Not just the lower cost ones, but like to Rick's
No,
point,
fine.
even the other ones. I mean, I think the least expensive thing in town right now is over $500,000 for like a,
$579.
And just to let you know, one of my clients could actually purchase one of the ones at $250,000. They work on the bridge, and with their salary right now, they actually can't afford a $250,000 home. So, it's a lot of people on both the workforce side as well as the finish side that would be up for these homes. So, there's a huge market. Not to mention how many people would come over the bridge that are working like Ken was talking about. that would now come over here and stay for many reasons. I mean, every time I go over to Virginia Beach, I mean, I love it, but I'm anxious as hell after driving for one day.
So also, I want to just share a personal experience too. When I drove across country to come here, immediately I was started looking for a place to stay. My first plan was to try to find a rental just to get me here, and then look for a house to purchase. We were in the process of selling our home in Colorado, and I landed, I had a place to stay, just, a friend let me stay there, and then I found an apartment, and it was $3,100 a month, 2-bedroom. That was the lowest I could find. And then they decided to back out, and the closest that I could afford was $3,500 for a 2-bedroom. There was no other options for somebody, me and 2 other people, my son and my wife. So it was very discouraging to kind of move across the country, and I couldn't find it, and I got that close of having to go back because I couldn't find anything. It took me, I felt like weeks before something ever, they were all helping me to try to find something. So I would say there's a huge need. Second is my experience, just to kind of answer your question too, Patsy, my experience in working with developers, we have not finalized this. Now, once we finalize this, that is very important for him to do his research, to do studies, and go through and make sure he's going to build a product that people will want. But to ask a developer when you submit a proposal to have that kind of stuff, that's just not normal to expect them to go do that kind of research if they don't even get selected. But once you get selected, they're going to do a lot more research and for their own financing performance to prove that this is going to work to the finance. So he's got a lot of work to do, but we haven't agreed to this yet. And so that's why before council wanted to put their stamp of approval, they wanted to make sure that we were transparent to speak to you, to vet this really well and get your feedback. So that's an important question, but just want to let you know.
Brian Murray, 204 Old Horse Loop. Yeah, I'm very supportive of the whole process, and I know a lot of work, has gone into just to get here, and there's more work to be done. But I imagine you need a lottery for the first 25 houses, affordable houses. Is it going to be first come, first serve, or are you going to put the 100 people that want a house in a lottery?
We're putting the cart way before the horse now.
Yeah.
Good point, though.
Yeah, it's a good point.
It is.
That'll be spelled out.
We're going to give first preference to our police officers that live across the bay after the years back and forth.
Any other questions? Not hearing any. Can I get a motion?
It was very quiet.
Close the
Like, what
public
did
hearing.
she say? Aye. Thanks for coming.
I think we should talk more about why we're not charging,
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah,
because that's going to circulate.
that's the question. That's the question.
I was almost going to do it, but I didn't feel like I had all the...
Yeah,
nobody's been beating our door down to build
I
affordable
think
housing.
these are still on.
Oh, yes.
If our only objective was making money off of the real estate, we could go market for high-end,
Yeah.
multi-level condos.
So that's why it was only 14.
I think we're still in on. I think we're still on. Okay, I'm just letting you.